this video, I want to talk to you about the 4-hour work week. I'm not sure whether you can see it. By Tim Ferriss. Escape the 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new rich. The book promises that for mini retirements to outsourcing your life, it's all here. And if you want to live your life on your own terms, this is your blueprint. High expectations maybe, but I think Tim Ferriss did a pretty good job in writing this book, which is also why it became a bestseller. In the book, Tim Ferriss approaches this change of life with 4 stages. The deal stages, how he calls them. D for definition, E for elimination, A for automation, and L for liberation. And I want to just go through these stages and tell you a bit about them. And I'm not really going to give a complete summary of the book because that's just impossible. There's so much practical advice in it and so many small things. I will just focus on the pieces that were most interesting for me when I read the book for the first time 1.5 years ago. So, of course, if you read the book, what you take from it might be completely different, but I just want to give you an example of what value I found in the book. So in the first stage, definition, it's really important to see that the world is not what it actually is for us, it is how we interpret it. It is our own reality that counts. And there's a really nice quote by Bill Cosby, which reads, "Civilization had too many rules for me, so I did my best to rewrite them." So really pointing out that some of these rules, these societal rules, or these rules that are just around us, they're not really there. They're just imagined. And there's actually this interesting study about monkeys in a cage, or like in a territory. And whenever they were going, one of them were going to the bananas, they would be sprayed with water. And they took one of the monkeys out, put a new one in. The old ones all knew if we go to the bananas we will get sprayed, so we don't go there. The new one, of course, didn't know that. He went to the bananas and the other monkeys tried to stop him from it. Now, bit by bit, one by one, they replaced the monkeys with new ones. And in the end, none of the monkeys in this territory actually had witnessed what happens when they go to the bananas. But still, nobody went there. When somebody tried to go there, a new one, the other new ones, the older new ones, stopped him. And in our society, there are some rules that, or some perceived rules that you can change or you can just neglect. So this is what this quote is actually about. And for more practical advice, Tim Ferriss explains the fear setting, which he also gave a TED talk about. So I'm not going to talk about this, but I'm going to give you the link in the description. Then there's an activity which I really like, the Dreamline. Dreamline is kind of like long-term goal setting in a way, in a specific way. So you would make 2 columns, one for 6 months, one for 12 months. And in each of these, you have 3 categories. The first one is having, what do I want to have within 6 months or 12 months? The second one is what do I want to be, so being, 6 months and 12 months. And the last one is what I want to be doing. And the interesting thing about the second and third stage is the being, you want to use that as a template to translate to the doing part. And I'll also give you a link for that because there are templates on the Tim Ferriss website, so you can do that very easily. And well, once you have everything written down, you pick from each of the months categories, so the 6 months and 12 months, you pick the 4 most exciting points that you wrote down. And for each of these, you write down at least 3 to-dos, 3 first steps that you can take to realize this goal, and you take the first one right after finishing writing it down. Of course, when you do this definition phase, it is very important to focus on yourself rather than on things you own. And this dreamline setting, dreamline describing really helps in this process. It helped me definitely. Okay, so let's go to the next stage, elimination. So what do you want to eliminate? You want to eliminate everything that is not really giving you too much. And the first thing that is explained, or one of the first things that is explained in these chapters, is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. So when you're effective, you're doing something and you do it well. If you're efficient, it's kind of like the same, but you also do the right thing, the thing that you actually need to do. So for example, I'm really good at making short calls to friends to ask them for things. But maybe that's not really the thing that I have to do. So I can be very effective in doing that, but it's not efficient when you look at what I actually want to achieve. Another thing I really liked was Tim Ferriss's suggestion to when you make appointments with people, that you do not ask too much for, hey, when do you have time, but rather propose. You propose a date and time to meet. You propose a date and time for scheduling a call. And that has some different aspects to it. For me, definitely, one is you're a bit more proactive in the approach, and you also, it's a bit more easy for you to schedule it. So you can right away put it into your calendar with a question mark, call so-and-so question mark, and then you just wait for the reply. And Tim Ferriss also gives some really good advice on writing emails. So I had to write a lot of emails in the last 1.5 years, and even before. And a lot of them were about asking for information. So, is it like this or is it like that? And the advice that I took from the book was make one email so precise and also describe everything that, like, if for example I ask, is it like this or like that? So there are 2 possible outcomes. Then I already anticipate these outcomes and write the person what to do if A or if B. So, did you do the assignment already? Question mark. That would be my old message. The new message would be, did you do it already? Question mark. If not, then do this and that. If yes, then please send it to me. So that way we can perhaps eliminate 1 more email or even more. And I found that really helpful. Then we have the... Actually, I think he made some more videos about that, because I remember being confronted by that a lot, and I think it resonated with a lot of people, which is the notion of having low information input. So he writes that he never reads the news. He never watches TV news. And I really like that, because I myself, I didn't do it just because I didn't really feel like it. I wasn't too interested in it, and people were always asking me things, and I had to kind of defend myself, and Tim Ferriss actually gave me this perfect response for that, because if you don't get all this information that is, most of it is actually not really relevant to you, and a lot of it is negative. If you don't get that, you can focus much better. You can focus on what's important for you. And if you're really interested, the suggestion Tim Ferriss gives is just go to somebody you, I don't know, meet while you're lunching, or some of your colleagues, and ask them, hey, didn't have time to catch up with the news, anything happened? And then you will get just a very short summary of what they think is important. Next is this streamlined process. So this applies more to work where you actually have some kind of influence in the processes. And it has to do with the 80-20 rule, where you look, where do I get 80% of the outcome for 20% of my input? So perhaps you could have a customer who buys a lot and is not a lot of work because they just send you the orders. And you have another customer who buys some pieces, but you really have to call them a lot, contact them a lot, and it's much more work. So in the streamlining process, you would focus on the customer that is no hassle. And you can do that with everything, every kind of work. You could look at, where do I get most viewers? If you like if you have an online platform, where do I get most viewers from? Focus on that. I get a little bit from, I don't know, Instagram, but it's a lot of work. Leave it out. Okay, then let's come to the next section, which is automation. I will not talk too much about it because I personally did not do too much about it, but I will tell you something. So in the book there's really a lot of information on outsourcing, with a lot of links to ways you can outsource and everything. I didn't check them actually because I was not at that stage yet. And what I really liked about it was this idea of, well, sometimes you just want to do things yourself so that they get better. You know, this perfectionist in you, and you don't want to outsource them. And what Tim Ferriss then suggests is that you actually think about, how much time would you save if you wouldn't do that? And what kind of outcome would it have if it were not perfect? And then weigh them. So it might be that you really want this perfect illustration, and you think you can do it, but it would take you so much time because you're actually not a designer. So if you outsource it, it's not going to be exactly how you want, you know that. But what are the weights? What is the cost of each? So maybe it's going to take you 2 weeks to design it. Or you spend 200 euros on it. Is it worth 200 euros to have 2 weeks off? Ask yourself in these kind of situations. Lastly, we come to the liberation phase, which I also really liked. Something very important that I actually noticed before and got reminded of in the book is that when you have free time, plan what to do in your free time. So I really did that with my daily breakdown of my hours, where I would see, oh, I have 4 free hours on tomorrow, and I would deliberately write down something in there, something fun, something that I wanted to do, so that my calendar was actually full, but not full in the sense of I have to do it, but full in the sense of that's what I thought I wanted to do. That's what I'm excited about doing. Because if you go through all these other stages and you actually make a lot of time, and you get this liberation in a way, but if you don't really know what to do, you're not gonna feel free. You're gonna feel like there's something missing. So actually this step I think is really underrated and really, really important. And lastly, the last thing I want to share with you is about what people often think of the retirement as the end goal of their working career. And Tim Ferriss suggests to change that into like mini retirements. So that could be like a week off or 2 weeks or a couple of months, so that you already enjoy your life while you're still in your working age, so to say. And that's actually one thing I found so interesting, and I read about in another blog article, How I Traveled the World and Built a Successful Corporate Career by Marius Jan. And I interviewed the author to give you some more concrete ideas and tips on how to actually plan these short vacations, short mini retirements, how Tim Ferriss calls them. So I will leave the link to that interview in the description, and I hope you like this video. See you soon.